Oh, when the machines go marching in. Oh, when the machines go marching in. Oh, mommy, I want to be in that number. Yeah, when the machines go marching in. Tell me, mommy. Oh, hello. I'm just working on my pitch for a new Phyrexian anthem. What do you think? Will Elish Norn like it? Why am I trying to get on Mommy Norn's good graces? Well, they actually brought a new card to Modern that's a reprint of an existing card that might just light the entire format on fire. And I, of course, want to be on the right side of the Phyrexian War when things go up in flames. But is this simple, cheap, functional reprint really going to light up the Modern format, or are there other, much more powerful cards flying under the radar and lurking in the shadows? Let's take a look. Let's begin by, oh, whoa, what's this? Some Magic the Gathering cards that I didn't sort. What are they? Gingerbread Cabin. Oh, that's a cool one. Pie eating contest. Feasting Troll King. Wow, sorting Magic the Gathering cards sure can make you hungry. That's why I'm grateful for today's sponsor, Factor. Did you like that? That's the segue into the ad. That was what we did for the segue. You know, like most people, I've been trying to eat healthier meals, but I'm so busy playing Magic the Gathering that I often resort to takeout or delivery. Factor makes this so much easier by delivering fresh, never frozen meals right to your doorstep. Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, giving you a wider array of meal plans, and now you can enjoy both brands at a discount with me, the Professor! Just head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code TolarianCommunity50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. No need for an Underworld cookbook. Factor offers delicious, flavor-packed options on the menu each week to fit a variety of lifestyles. From keto to calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus even, all prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians. Each meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long while meeting your goals. You'll have lots of choices with over 34 chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options. There's always something new to try. Plus, you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of over 45 add-ons, including breakfast items like egg bites, smoothies, and more. You'll feel like you have your own master chef in your house with Factor's new Gourmet Plus meal options when you're craving something special. They come with a side of premium produce like broccolini to perfectly complement your protein. Meals include choices like shrimp and salmon and steak that somehow is cooked perfectly when reheated, not dry or tough. So if this sounds delicious, head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code TolarianCommunity50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this video. So what is this functional reprint that's going to potentially light Modern up in flames? Well, it's Ren and 6. No, wait, that was a Modern Horizons card. But it is Ren up to their old tricks. With Rens Resolve, a functional reprint of Reckless Impulse. It's a common, it's mere pennies, and the fact that they did not directly reprint Reckless Impulse now means certain decks can run up to 8 copies, which might mean trouble. Rens Resolve is a sorcery for 1 generic and 1 red mana that reads, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards until the end of your next turn. Rens Resolve, therefore, doesn't bring anything new to the table, but instead it brings something redundant to the table. And in 60-card decks, take note, Commander players, redundancy is a good thing. It means reliability. And thanks to Rens Resolve, Modern Prowess decks now have access to up to 8 Reckless Impulses. Previously, Prowess decks were often in Jeskai colors, splashing for white sideboard cards like Prismatic Ending and Wear and Tear. And of course, for what is probably the best Divination variant in Modern, Expressive Iteration to go alongside its playset of Reckless Impulse. Yes, Iteration is a better card than Rens Resolve, as it allows you to look at one more card and save one of the cards you find for a later turn. This is important for decks with counter magic, since having a counter spell that you're allowed to cast sitting face up in exile is much less effective than putting one in your hand. But in a deck like Prowess with a low curve and a fast, assertive game plan, you will almost always be able to make use of the cards you exile by the end of your next turn. With Rens Resolve, you get a weaker version of Expressive Iteration that is nevertheless strong enough to potentially cut the blue cards from your deck entirely, giving you a cleaner, more consistent mana base. True, the impact of Rens Resolve may be limited to this specific archetype, but it's the closest thing to a sure thing for Modern as you can get, given that it literally already does see play under a different name. But while now having up to 8 copies of this one card is indeed going to light up Prowess decks, I don't think it's going to burn down the entire Modern format. But that isn't to say that there aren't some powerful new toys for Modern to play with from March of the Machine. Let's get to the real list of real heavy hitters that are likely going to impact the format. So, number 5 on our list for true new staples to the Modern format from March of the Machine is a card that many Modern the Gathering players may argue should be higher on the list, and that is Halo Forager. Halo Forager is a 3-mana, 3/1 flying fairy rogue in Dimir colors with a Snapcaster Mage-esque enters the battlefield effect. When Halo Forager enters the battlefield, you may pay X generic mana to exile an instant or sorcery with equal mana value from a graveyard. Any graveyard, by the way. That's right, this simple spell can cast from your opponent's graveyard as well. Halo Forager is what you get when you cross a Snapcaster Mage with a Dire Fleet Daredevil. What makes Halo Forager so exciting for many Modern players is that this little fairy rogue can flashback suspend spells like Living End and Crashing Footfalls. Now I want to be clear, it is impossible to evaluate Halo Forager in Modern without comparing it to a similar card released just 2 sets ago, Arcane Proxy. When Arcane Proxy was previewed, many players, myself included, thought it would be a natural fit in Rhinos as a way to flash back your Crashing Footfalls. And Rhinos players certainly played with Proxy for a while. But before long, it became clear that Arcane Proxy just didn't offer the Rhinos archetype something it wanted. And it's because of Arcane Proxy that I am not ranking Halo Forager higher on this list. But there are a few key reasons why Halo Forager does still make the list, despite its predecessor's low impact on Modern. The first is that Halo Forager is blue and black, whereas Arcane Proxy, despite its prototype cost, is not. Cascade decks are known for their use of free pitch spells like Force of Negation, Subtlety, and Grief. Arcane Proxy and Halo Forager are good when you have a spell worth flashing back with them, but when you don't, well, they might as well be blank cardboard. And in Cascade decks, you need your blank cardboard to have a secondary mode of pitches to my free interaction. Halo Forager can be pitched to Force of Negation, Grief, and Subtlety, and therefore has more inherent utility than Arcane Proxy. That being said, it's also a Dimir card, and neither Living End nor Rhinos can easily cast a black spell. It won't be enough for Halo Forager to be synergistic with these archetypes. It needs to be good enough to be worth splashing an additional color, which, in a format under the shadow of Blood Moon, is certainly not free. One last point in favor of Halo Forager. The fairy can act as a sideboard card against Cascade decks, especially against Living End. If you cast Halo Forager against Living End after they've already resolved a Living End, not only do you wipe the board, you also preemptively prevent any future Living Ends from resolving until Living End has found an endurance to clear your Halo Forager, as every time they cast Living End while you have a Halo Forager in the graveyard, your Forager will return. Flash back the Living End they just cast and reset the board. You don't even technically need to cast Halo Forager to set this up. If you have a way to dump the Forager in the graveyard before they pull off their Living End, you'll remain insulated from Living End until they find that endurance. Continuing down our list, number 4 is Winota, Joiner of Forces. Winota is, I'm sorry, I meant number 4 is Dejeru and Hazaret. Dejeru and Hazaret is a 5-mana, 5/4 legendary human god team-up creature for 2 generic, 2 red, and 1 white mana. Wow, what a mouthful. Dejeru and Hazaret has vigilance and haste as long as you have 1 or fewer cards in your hand. When Dejeru and Hazaret attacks, you may look at the top 6 cards of your library and cast a legendary creature card from among them without paying its mana cost. Now, how good Dejeru and Hazaret will be in Modern depends on whether or not there's a good legendary creature in Modern to cast without paying its mana cost. Unfortunately, I don't think there are any such creatures. What a nice moon. Oh! Emrakul, of course. How could I forget about Emrakul? Imagine, if you will, the following play pattern. Turn 1, cast the Underworld Cookbook. On turn 2, discard Dejeru and Hazaret to the Underworld Cookbook. Cast Goryo's Vengeance, targeting Dejeru and Hazaret. Attack for 5 with Dejeru and Hazaret. Resolve their trigger. Find and cast Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Resolve Emrakul's cast trigger to take an extra turn. Deal your opponent 5 damage. Exile Dejeru and Hazaret at end of turn. Goodbye, Dejeru and Hazaret. Thank you for the Emrakul. Untap for your extra turn. Attack with Emrakul. You have now dealt your opponent 20 damage on turn 2. Dejeru and Hazaret do require you to get a bit lucky in order to make the most out of it. But the nice thing about all the creatures that Dejeru and Hazaret could find you is those creatures can also just be the creatures you reanimate with Goryo's Vengeance. There is a ton of potential for combo shenanigans in Modern with this card. Dejeru and Hazaret is also the type of card that will only continue to get better the more time goes on, as Wizards of the Coast continues printing powerful legendary creatures and other ways to manipulate the top of your deck. I am sure that Twitch streamer and lover of Modern Brews, aspiring Spike, is already working on a way to pair this card with Witch's Cottage, the common land from Eldraine to set up the top of your deck, with a great legend to hit off Dejeru and Hazaret. But there's even more power for Modern from this set, and next up we have a 2-mana legend with a triggered ability that should have every Modern player's alarm bells ringing. Rona, Herald of Invasion. Rona is a 1/3 legendary human wizard for 1 generic and 1 blue mana. Rona can tap to draw and then discard a card. She also has a triggered ability. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap Rona. Finally, she has the ability to transform for 5 generic and a Phyrexian black mana. The transformed Rona is a new Phyrexian Obliterator variant. Rona, Tolarian Obliterator. Tolarian Obliterator Rona is a 5/5 with Trample. Whenever a source deals combat damage to Rona, that source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land, you may put it into play under your control. Otherwise, cast it without paying its mana cost. The transformed side of Rona is definitely powerful if you can pull it off, but it's not the primary reason to put Rona in your deck, nor is her useful though not unique activated ability. No, the reason Rona is a promising card for Modern is her potential as a combo card thanks to her untap ability. Anytime a card offers repeatable untaps, it's something worth keeping an eye on, and Rona is no exception. The best card to pair with Rona is Mox Amber. As a 0-mana legend, Mox Amber both taps for blue mana with Rona and triggers Rona's untap ability. The best way to make this go infinite in Modern is with Banishing Knack or Retraction Helix. Both these spells grant Rona the ability to generate infinite blue mana in tandem with a Mox Amber, repeatedly tapping the Mox Amber for blue, then tapping Rona to return it to hand, and then casting Mox Amber again to untap Rona. Honestly, I believe the most likely case for Rona is she will remain on the shelf waiting for the perfect combo piece to get printed somewhere down the line. As a cheap creature with an absolute array of abilities, it is virtually inevitable that Wizards of the Coast will eventually print a card or cards that allows Rona to go infinite without having to bend over backwards to enable it. So keep an eye on Rona over the next few sets. She's bound to be broken eventually. So what are the 2 best new cards for Modern from March of the Machine? Well, number 2 is going to really surprise you with its surge of power. That's right, number 2 on this list is Surge of Salvation, a card that has many Modern Hammer Time players extremely excited. Surge of Salvation is a 1-mana white instant that reads, you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Prevent all damage that black and or red sources would deal this turn. Surge of Salvation is a part of a cycle of color hate cards in the set, but ironically its best use case in Modern isn't against any black or red card. Surge of Salvation specifically is exciting to Hammer players because it counters Force of Vigor. Many Hammer players are already playing Blacksmith's Skill, which counters most removal spells, including pitch elementals like Solitude. But Skill only fizzles half of Force of Vigor, and as such, a well-placed Force of Vigor will still be devastating even through a Blacksmith's Skill. Surge of Salvation counters all targeted removal of all kinds, all damage-based wraths like Brotherhood's End and Anger of the Gods, and any direct direct damage burn spell, including all copies of Grape Shot, by the way, where that's relevant. It doesn't prevent deflecting Palm from blanking the damage your big hammered up creature deals, but it does prevent Palm from dealing that damage back at your face, which means you can now kill a burn player by attacking with 2 different creatures equipped with hammers and holding up Surge of Salvation in case they go for a deflecting Palm that would otherwise result in a draw. That said, Surge of Salvation has one major drawback over Blacksmith's skill. It doesn't grant indestructible. Combat damage from non-black and non-red sources will still go through, and more importantly, sweepers like Supreme Verdict will still destroy your creatures. I believe skill will remain a main deck answer to removal spells for Hammer, while Surge of Salvation will be a sideboard card for Force of Vigor decks, as well as Burn and Rakdos Scam. And other white decks may also want this card as a potent protection spell, such as 5-color Creativity, 5-color Domain Zoo, and possibly even in Burn as a spell for the Mirror. This is one of the strongest protection spells we've ever seen, and therefore highly likely to make a splash, or rather prevent a splash, in Modern. But with all that power and all that said and done, what is the #1 new card for Modern from March of the Machine? The #1 card in March of the Machine for Modern is a battle card. And not only that, but a battle card that's a package deal. Invasion of Aquaria. Invasion of Aquaria is a 6 defense siege for X generic and 2 green mana. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and/or graveyard for a non-human with mana value X or less and put it on the battlefield. Its flip side is Zilortha, Apex of Aquaria, a legendary 8/8 dinosaur with reach that reads, you may have non-human creatures assign combat damage as if they were not blocked. Invasion of Aquaria is the only battle from March of the Machine that's likely to make an impact in Modern, and specifically because of how it interacts with a certain feisty vampire from Zendikar. Vampire Hexmage. For 4 mana, Invasion of Aquaria tutors for Vampire Hexmage. You can then sacrifice Vampire Hexmage, targeting Invasion of Aquaria, to immediately flip it into Zilortha. And you don't need to play more than 1 copy of Vampire Hexmage in order to play 4 invasions, either. If your first Zilortha dies, your next invasion can bring the Hexmage you used for your previous invasion back from the graveyard to repeat the process over again. Invasion of Aquaria encourages you to put a few different one-ofs in your deck. For X = 3, you can tutor for Grist, the Hunger Tide, a powerful planeswalker that counts as an insect creature when in your deck or the graveyard. Situationally strong one-ofs like Burrington Forge Tender, Endurance, Eternal Witness, Magus of the Moon, or Haywire Might are also on the table. As far as which decks will want Invasion of Aquaria, well, that's a bit tricky based on the current meta. The 2 most prominent green-based creature combo decks, Yawgmoth and Devoted Druid, have at least 1 human component in their combo. Devoted Druid has Vizier of Remedies, and Yawgmoth has, well, Yawgmoth. But in the case of Devoted Druid, the invasion can find you Stoneforge Mystic, which in turn finds you Luxior, Giada's Gift, which can be equipped to your Druid for infinite mana. The interaction between Invasion and Vampire Hexmage is powerful enough that the invasion package is likely to find a home somewhere in Modern. The only question, as always, is where. So while one simple functional reprint may not be the card that takes Modern by storm, these 5 contenders are highly likely to make a dent in that meta. But now I want to hear from you. What cards from March of the Machine that I did not mention do you think will see play in Modern? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, whether you are buying packs of March of the Machine or just gaming accessories, when it is possible, when it is reasonable to do so, try and spend that money where you spend time playing this great game, and that is at your local game store. You're supporting your Magic the Gathering community when you do. Hey, thanks once again to Factor for delivering freshly prepared meals right to my door, which are reheated in mere minutes and delicious every time. If you're ready to stop eating that unhealthy fast food and takeaway and start getting delicious and nutritious meals from Factor, then head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code TellarianCommunity50 to get, 50% off your first Factor box. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this video.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, we are playing with $50 budget decks. It's Budget Commander with Budget Commander.
Hi, my name is Tomer from MTG Goldfish. My commander is Min, Wily Illusionist.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joey. I am playing my baby lasagna.
My name is Alec, and today I'm playing Satoru Umezawa.
My commander is Helena and Elena. So these are what Canadians call biscuits.
No, these are what Canadians call bribes.
Excuse me.
All right, that needs to die just so that reference can die.
I didn't want you to draw 14 cards. That's a lot of cards.
But Joey,
Just to send a message, attack you with my Ornithopter.
no way. What?
For 0.
I'm a method actor. I'm like Christian Tesseract. Bale.